quick presentation. And I made this presentation not to be an overachiever like my peers said, but to keep me on track, because as a teacher, I talk a lot. So this is kind of my checks and balance to keep me in line with the time allotted. So I named this the unlikely road, because I really believe that my road was unlikely. Why? If you can see this city in the background, it's Detroit, Michigan. A great place to grow up, but a horrible place to live. And there was not a lot of opportunities. And if you might have heard the term opportunity, it's a lot different than talent. I truly believe that talent is equally distributed across this world, but opportunity is not. And the opportunities were few and far between where I grew up. So I actually became an untraditional student, someone who worked after 18 and went back to school at 26 years old. So if this sounds like you, this might be the presentation for you. My typical workday is working with engineering and computer science undergraduate, transfer students, and incoming freshmen in order to keep them ready for the engineering fields that they're getting ready to embrace. A lot of times as transfer students, we miss out on the freshman and sophomore fundamental classes that are necessary for survival. My job is to be kind of a bridge for those community college students, to let them have experiences on the university campus before they transfer. So I have the extreme privilege of working with over 2,000 students on a day-to-day basis. Of course, engineering and computer science based. I would say the necessary steps students need to take to prepare themselves for a professional position, be open. Originally, when I went to college, I did not think of myself in this position. In fact, my undergrad is in applied math and statistics, and I went and got an MBA. My thought was that I was going to be a quantitative analyst on Wall Street. And if you talk to me while I was in my first few years, you couldn't tell me anything different. I always had the ambition of helping, but I never thought that teachers got paid a lot. And I was always fearful that I would go to school and come out without making a lot of money. So I went the finance route. And I took my first internship in finance after my MBA through Japan. I went through an externship and I worked with Toshiba and I worked with JP Chase. And during that JP Chase internship, I realized I didn't like what I was doing. And I was more happy when I was doing things that are more STEM based and teaching in that regard. So I literally flipped my career path mid MBA and chose from finance to information technology and reinvented myself, learning networking technologies and a lot of the programming skills that I learned right now. So that was a big kick. So I definitely recommend if you think that you like a major, take a job in that or step into the shoes of somebody in that major, you might be surprised. So what specific skills, abilities, educational requirements are necessary for the role that I'm in right now? Well, working in the engineering and computer science field, definitely having a bit of experience in those areas helped out, but it's not necessarily required. I think anyone with a strong desire to help, someone who's great communication skills, and someone who doesn't mind being a shoulder to cry on a little bit for students along the way. I think those are the more endearing traits. So in a nutshell, anyone can do it. In fact, I don't think that I was in school at all for some of the things that my boss was in school for to prepare for higher education. So I guess it depends on, again, opportunities, your desire to help, and finding your niche. So in my field, I'd say that the background information of being able to speak and being able to talk the engineering jargon has helped out a lot. The salary ranges. Now, something about higher education, there's huge gaps. You wouldn't think that it would go from 40 to 50 like normal, but somebody in my role typically makes 60 to 70,000 per year. But someone in my boss's role, who happens to be an assistant dean of access and inclusion, it goes upwards to 140 to 150,000 per year. And that's generally how it goes in higher education between professor and other epsilons. But I'm here to tell you that the salary doesn't matter. There's salary, there's quality of life, those two things. And I'm a firm believer that quality of life is way better than salary. And if you have a great quality of life and you love what you're doing, the money will come. If you're the best, or you're one of the best, or you strive to be the best, you will get noticed, you will get recognized, and you will get paid. Mid-level, I kind of explained that mid-level for my position would be upwards to 140 to 150. And the advanced roles, it kind of jumps again to more of a provost type of dean or higher education. The dean of education, of engineering at our school makes upwards of 350 per year. And I'm sure that's not the same with every school, but with UCI, they're very fortunate. So advantages, disadvantages of my job. Time, personal life. I pretty much have dedicated my personal time to helping the students. And I willfully do this. There's a lot of people who are in my roles that work 40 hours per week, but I tend to think that they don't have the reach that someone who kind of works a little bit above and beyond tends to have. There's students out there, and my goal is to find each one of them that needs help, that seeks help. As students call me as they're going through different experiences during their undergraduate experience, I mean, I want to talk to them and I want to help them. So I don't have a problem staying extra or talking extra with the student. And disadvantages, funding. I say our department is not always funded in ways that you would expect, and we have to kind of seek out our own grants. So I say one of the big disadvantages is we don't have as much money as we need to reach as many people as I would like. And even when you get a grant, there's other resources that take money away from that grant, even at the university level. I won't talk too highly on that, but there is overhead that departments like mine have to pay to university just to keep our survival, and overhead is justified by the utilities, by the space, by the other resources that are on campus. So I put a big 0 here, but it's kind of not all the way true. It says discuss internships and how your career path was influenced. I was always upset because I got passed over for internships. I did not get one of the internships that I wanted in undergrad. I didn't get any of the internships I wanted in grad school. But one thing I did that has really helped me out, that I encourage each one of you to do, is volunteer. Volunteer. Volunteer in those areas that you really love. And guess what? Influential people are there. You will meet and network people that are there. And I actually got in touch with my last 2 main promotions through the volunteer work that I've done in the community, helping students, which I got no pay for. So I would like to encourage you to work a little bit more and to seek out those volunteer opportunities, because that might be the road to your opportunity. Again, talent is equally distributed, but opportunities are not. And any other information I feel suitable, there's an STEM program at UCI. Did you know you can get a $10,000 scholarship as a transfer student to go to UCI in engineering and computer science? We have a bridge program that not only gets you prepared for some of the things that were taught during the freshman and sophomore year, but also gives you a chance to touch some of the hands-on labs that freshmen and sophomores are exposed to, but us as community college students, we're not always exposed to. So I definitely encourage you to seek out programs at the university level for incoming transfer students. I think that's a real big key. And I hope I'm still okay on time, but that's all I had as far as my presentation. I see people shaking their heads. I hope I didn't go over, but thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ernest. That was such valuable information for our students. We appreciate you sharing your wealth of knowledge and experiences that you've encountered. So thank you so much. Let's give a virtual round of applause to Ernest. Thank you so much. And now we have Brianna.
So I just want to say really quick, we know that goes by really fast. That was a little over 8 minutes. So, and I'm going to give like thumbs up at the 1 minute mark for anybody that didn't hear that. So if you see the thumbs up, it means you have 1 more minute left. Okay. All right. Awesome.
All right. And Brianna, you're on.
All right. Let me just go ahead and share my screen. Okay, Okay, so hi everyone. For me, one of the most influential things that I've experienced in my lifetime was actually in the 2008 when Barack Obama was elected to office, and he gave his speech. And one of the quotes that really just stood out to me is, "We are the ones that we've been waiting for." And that has just resonated for me throughout like my career, throughout graduate school, throughout undergrad, high school, I'm sorry, just undergrad. And I just always look at that as being kind of being put the impetus on us to be the change that you want to see in the world. So how can I'm actually currently in graduate school, finishing up, and I'm an ecologist, or that's someone who studies like the environment in plants. I got my BS at Spelman College, HBCU in Atlanta, Georgia. And I just wanted to ask myself all throughout both college and undergrad and graduate school, just how can I be the change? How can I show that the ones that we have been waiting for are us, and how can I implement that change in what I see and do today? So some of the critical influences for my career, or at least in my path of graduate school, are I've had like a really strong passion since I was a toddler to study plants and the environment. When most kids were probably getting in trouble writing on the wall at their house, I was the one who was like collecting plants and flowers actually from outside and in my backyard, putting it in my pocket and just putting it along a windowsill in order to dry it. And my mom said like ever since then that she knew that I had a passion for science and for biology in particular. I've been fortunate enough to have both support from my family and from other members in my community. So they've always supported me in whatever I do. And if you don't have that, that's difficult, but you can still definitely push through. But I think just mainly my family has been such a critical aspect for my role in a graduate school. Secondly, there's been such a strong passion and also compassionate from members in my community, and just people out on trails or people out at conferences. And I think that one of the things that can be easily mischaracterized is just the amount of support that is available to all sorts of people. So there are some particular helpful skills for my field, and this might, again, focus a little bit more on ecology, just because that's my passion, but I believe in STEM in general, is just one, problem solving. One of the problems that I've recently run into is, as a part of my dissertation, was basically measuring plants and seeing how heavy they are compared to different locations. And this was like 2 hours from where I mainly lived. It was out in very remote regions, and I needed to figure out how I, like, as someone who's from a suburb area, not really familiar with some type of really intensive manual labor. I had to figure out how to chop down these really, really huge trees and to get help from people in my field. So I was able to figure that out due to some like really, really critical and helpful people in my lab. But that's a really, really important aspect in just being able to figure out how to solve problems that might crop up throughout your work. Secondly, teamwork. So this is actually super critical in just like the science community at large to me. Science isn't done in a vacuum. You're not just the only person doing this, but you have other people, other scientists or ecologists that are interested in what you're doing. And we have such a wide base of knowledge that you can access through other people. So I think just being able to have teamwork is really, really helpful for my field. And lastly, communication. So communication can be in a lot of different avenues, whether it's more professionally done through like journals, or more casually done through just like conversations that you have with like people in the community, managerial positions. All this is like really important, critical for me, being that change that we want to see in the world, and being able to actually make changes that are long lasting in your specific community. So now I think there's a very strong importance of being both inclusive and having a really diverse workplace. So I'm not sure how many of you are all familiar with imposter syndrome, but this is just a feeling that where you are isn't really done because of what you've done, but really just you're not supposed to be there, that you're not worthy. And I've talked over this with several other people, and I feel like this can really be strongly representative in people of color, and just thinking that maybe you got in there due to certain reasons through leaders, and that you actually don't have the qualifications to be where you are. I found out that that's not really true, but that is something that people can really struggle with. So I think one of those things that would help negate, or at least ameliorate, this feeling that you're not supposed to be there, this imposter syndrome, is seeing yourself in a leadership position. So I think it's really critical that you have mentors or leaders in your life that look like you, that have had maybe the same experience as you. When you have that possibility, seeing someone that looks like you, or that sounds like you, that's from the same community as you, in those strong positions, I think that really helps and pushes you to be in that leadership position. So I was actually able to attend a NOAA conference. This is a branch of the government, or it's basically the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. And so they're really looking at kind of like hurricanes and weather and meteorology. So I was able to attend that conference. I tried to search for the picture online, but I couldn't find it. But this huge picture, I was like one of the only people at the conference of, I think like over 100 people that looked like me. And that was really hard to feel like that I actually fit in and that I'd be able to make a meaningful impact. But when I've gone and talked to other people that have had similar experiences to me, I feel like that has really influenced me and really pushed me to try to be in a higher leadership position. There's been a situation, I'm not sure how familiar people are with the whole Black to the Trails hashtag that was kind of going around earlier this year because of an incident in New York Central Park where there was some I don't know if I want to get into it, but basically, I think just including other people that aren't typically seen as birders, or other people that aren't usually seen in the field of sciences, to get that inclusive space, whether it's being outside in the outdoors or in the lab in a lab coat. I think it's really important that all people are able to be in these positions. So there have been challenges throughout my career, or throughout my experience at graduate school. Thankfully, I'm currently in a location with an extremely high level of diversity, both socioeconomically speaking, as well as racially, and just different backgrounds. So that I think really helps to lessen some of the impacts of the challenges that I've had. Earlier this year, when there was some tension in Michigan due to some things that have been going on. A professor in a really high position, an emeritus position, basically sent out this really inflammatory email to the whole body of the community that I was in at the time at UC Davis. And it was really disheartening to see. You don't have to read all of it, but basically what he said was, keep calm and continue business as usual, that everything's like, keep a stiff upper lip. And this is coming from a guy that was in a really high level position. And it was really kind of demeaning and talking down, saying that things can continue as usual. So that was really disheartening to hear, and was really upsetting. I mean, this was like kind of the end of my position in graduate school, and like just seeing like what I'd have to go through, like all these different types of barriers that I'd have to face due to people not being super supportive was really hard to see. But there was also, due to, again, being in a place with high amounts of diversity and really greater amounts of thinking, that there was a huge backlash from the community at the time, saying like, this is like wildly inappropriate. Students don't feel like they have the voice to be able to say what they want. How can you do this in a position of power? So I think that, of course, there's always going to be challenges in what you do, but just know that you're not alone.
Brianna, if you can wrap it up in the next a minute or so.
Okay, sure, that's perfect. This is the last slide. Thank you. Okay, so what I wish I would have known, one is I think you should know that you can talk with your professors or mentors, that they're incredibly helpful and that they want you to succeed in what you do. What you put into it is what you'll get out of it. So whether you're at an internship or at your job, however much effort you put in to that to the job or internship is exactly what you'll get out of it. So I've been able to get a lot of experience through different internships over the summer when I was an undergrad, and that has led me to be able to network with a lot of different people that I wouldn't have been able to previously. So I think you should make a concerted effort to try to put yourself out there. And lastly, resources are everywhere. Whether, like Ernest was saying, whether it's doing volunteership, I've been able to volunteer with multiple different organizations, and that's really widened my scope of the importance of just like ecology and what I do, or whether it's doing internships or just talking with people or going to conferences. Resources are everywhere, and that's a really good way to get into your field. Okay, that's all I had.
All right, thank you so much, Brianna. That was amazing. Let's give a virtual round of applause. And we appreciate you sharing advice and encouragement, and your experience is just so valuable. Thank you so much. And Deanna, do you want to just address if we're seeing, if the speakers are seeing the thumbs up?
Just to check in, now that we've had 2 speakers, are you guys seeing the thumbs up that I've been posting? I mean, I know you're not seeing it. Okay, that's why. Okay, so to give you like a 1 minute, do you want me to, is it okay to jump in and say you guys have 1 minute? Do you want me to hold up a finger? I can say, I can do this. Is that, okay, you guys said that seems like it'll work. Okay, we don't want to interrupt you. We're like trying not to, you guys are giving such great information, but I do want to be able that you have 1 minute left because we're over here like, oh my God. So I will hold up one finger saying you have 1 minute left.
Awesome, thank you. And we want to make sure that all of our panelists that are here will have the time to be able to present their information that they have for us. And next we have with us Kimberly. So please take the floor and present. Thank you for being here.
Hello, thank you for having me. First of all, I want to say welcome to healthcare, or to the STEM. It's really a great place to be, I think. There's a lot of opportunities, there's a lot of things to learn, and it's always changing, which is always fun for me. Give you a little bit of background. So I went to school for accounting and found out I was pregnant like towards the last part of my school year. So I cut it short, and so I only have an accounting degree, accounting certificate. And I went and started working in just the accounting, like an account specialist field with marketing, and was not given very much money at the time. So I wanted to be able to take care of my child. So I started working as a telephone operator at a major hospital in Seattle, Washington. And I got to know people and in the admitting department, and I was able to move around in the field of healthcare in the hospitals. I was in the emergency department, then I went over to counting the money. I was in the cash office, and then I went over to answering customer phone calls and updating accounts, making sure that the bills were processed correctly. And that's where I met my supervisor. Was a Black lady, and so she really mentored me, and she helped me to become a lead in that department. And I loved like writing procedures, and I was still doing checks and balances, so my accounting skills were still being used, and I was having more kids, and so there was just a lot of finances that I really wanted to be able to take care of. So I wanted to grow in that. And I was able to move into being a supervisor at the hospital, the main hospital, in the business office, which encompassed the emergency department, patient account reps, all of the cashiers, the patient billers, the hospital coders, financial counselors. And so I had about 40 people under me, and it was a 24/7 shop. I had to do all their schedules and work with the union, and that was a lot. And I was really underpaid at that time. And I knew that other people that had less staff were getting paid way more than I was. And I always said, well, maybe it's because I don't have the education, right? So I want to encourage everybody to get your education so you won't be denied the money that you deserve. Then I went over to Seattle Children's Hospital, and I was a supervisor over their accounts receivable department for 7 more years after that. And I learned a lot. My soft skills that I encourage you guys to have are communication. Make sure you communicate clearly and exactly what you want to say, and be self-motivated, because people are looking, especially when you're a person of color. You have to work twice as hard. Everybody tells you that, right? So that and teamwork is a big deal. Making decisions, just sound decisions, is I'm encouraging you to do that. And then conflict resolution is a huge thing to learn when you're in this field. And always be on time and be early if you can, because people look at that. My what do I want to say? The other thing that you need to make sure is there are going to be people that don't want you to be in the position that you're in, and just rise above that. You know what God has for you, and know that what you're doing is for the good of the people. There are more people in healthcare that are looking for healthcare services that look like us, and so they need to see us in these positions. So I encourage you to continue to just make it if I had my degree, I'm sure I would have been like one of the directors, or I was just a lowly little supervisor running all the people around. But I could have gotten a lot higher in the field. So I encourage you guys to do your education, stay focused, and stay positive with it. There's a lot of baby boomers that are retiring from all of these fields, and you need to be able to just walk right in there and take over. That's it.
Thank you, Kimberly. That was amazing. Yes, stay focused and keep going forward. That was just really great to hear your experiences and how you were able to overcome so many challenges, and what a valuable advice to all of our students. Thank you for the inspiration. Then next we have with Caesar. You have the floor.
Hello. My name is Cesar Juarez. I grew up in Los Angeles. I actually went to high school. I don't know if any of your students went to Orthopedic Hospital Medical Magnet High School. It's a mouthful, but it's in downtown LA. After graduating from high school, I went to Loyola Marymount University, closer to Marina del Rey, and I studied biology. And in terms of why I chose my career path, what I tell everyone, I guess, is that I remember watching a lot of nature documentaries with my dad when I was growing up. And so that kind of just steered me towards the sciences. And so today I'm a laboratory and facilities technician at Provivi Inc., a company that's super close to SMC. If I probably have seen students prior to the pandemic on the train, because I always take it to work. And I know a lot of SMC students are always there. A typical workday for me is Provivi is a very young company, so it's kind of difficult to describe it, but I guess I can. I do a lot of different things. I think mostly in the morning, I help the entomology department, and I'll help with insect rearing. So I'll, make food for the insects. I'll check their eggs. I'll check their facilities, do all that kind of stuff for the insects. And then after that, I kind of go through the whole laboratory and I check the facilities. So like for the molecular biology department, if they need any supplies, if they need help with anything, I'll help them out. And also I'll go over to the analytical chemistry side and I'll ask them what they need. They usually will let me know if they're like GC machines, the gas chromatography machines, if they're being weird. I'll help deal with that by checking the contracts, stuff like that. And we also just have a hardcore chemistry department, and I just kind of check with them too. So there's a lot of different things that I do. And then after that, I'll typically go back to the office, and then I'll help with purchase orders. Accounting might send me some emails, and I have to do some stuff with that. So in a startup that's like a very young company, at least for me and my experience as a lab technician, you do a lot of things. And so that kind of is a good segue, I guess, for me to talk about the advantages and disadvantages. Because for me, an advantage of working at a startup and being a laboratory technician is that since it is an entry-level position, I have gotten to learn a lot in the past 2 years. And I think that is a huge advantage, but at the same time, it's also a disadvantage if you like going to work and knowing exactly what you need to do, and you like kind of having a routine, because I don't really have a lot of that. And in terms of a salary, being a lab technician, it's kind of hard to say. You could start at a company that doesn't really value lab technicians, and so you'll make closer to like 30,000. But there's some other larger biotech companies, and they'll pay pretty good. You can be between like 50 to 60,000, or so there's a huge range. And for mid-career, that's kind of an interesting part about it. For a lab technician, depending on your industry, you could literally go from being all about the science to now being in the business side of the company. And so mid-career, you could become an associate scientist, or you could decide to join management. And for senior levels, especially in a startup, you could literally go from management to end up being like the CFO or something. So when a company is small like that, you could kind of just go anywhere. Let me check on the questions. And so in terms of preparation, at least speaking from my career, I'm glad that I studied biology because it's a very general subject. So I got to learn a lot of bits and pieces of all the sciences. I wish I learned a little bit more of business. So if you are interested in the biotech field, you should probably learn some business too, because you got to learn to manage money for the company, and also maybe your own money in the future, but a lot of business skills would be super beneficial. So also in terms of internships, I wouldn't be where I am without the internship I got when I graduated from LMU. I had a bio degree, but I didn't have any hard skills in the sciences. I just kind of had what I learned in my classes. And so when I was applying to jobs, no one really cared about me. It wasn't after I got an internship that I was able to, like when I got interviews, I was able to say, I know these techniques, I know how to use this machine. I'm very safe in the laboratory. I was able to tell them very concrete things about what I know how to do. And so interviews started coming, and then also like offer letters did as well. And any other additional information that I'd like to share, I'd like to just say, if it was up to me, I think I'd do it all over again the same way, because I like being in the laboratory, and I like position I'm in because I get to learn so much, and I can go a lot of different directions from here. So if that sounds interesting to you, I would say go into maybe a laboratory technician position in a startup, and you really learn a lot, and you can go a lot of places from there. And I think that's all I got.
Thank you, Caesar. That was very helpful to hear your experiences at the lab and how you were able to persevere and have great contributions to the field. So let's give Caesar a virtual round of applause. And thank you so much. That was awesome. And next we have Dr. Lindsay. You're on.
Hi, my name is Quinn Lindsay. I should say I'm a doctor as well, PhD. I am from rural Alabama, outside of Montgomery. I did go to, I went to public high school, magnet school. I was very interested in engineering and sciences from the kind of the get-go. I did many kind of extracurriculars that were more science oriented. When I went to college, undergrad, I had the choice of, and I was very interested in robotics, let's just say that. I had two main choices that I had when I went to undergrad. One was Carnegie Mellon, which most of you probably know is pretty good in robotics. The other option was Yale. I did visit both of them. I kind of fell in love with Yale. It was kind of a Harry Potter moment. If you ever go to there, it kind of looks like a Harry Potter moment. So I ended up going to Yale for undergrad. On a dare, probably the first month or two of undergrad, I was there to declare my major, like really early. I ended up declaring mechanical engineering. I basically stuck with it. I eventually had taken so many classes in electrical engineering that I ended up double majoring in electrical engineering. Every summer of, I'm kind of splitting the internship thing, but I can start doing that right now. Every summer of undergrad, I did do an internship. The first one was at Yale with a local, with one of the professors that I eventually would be my electrical engineering advisor. The next year was the University of Michigan. A year after that was Caltech. And in the summer after my senior year, I went to work at Segway in New Hampshire. I went to grad school at UPenn, focusing on robotics and mostly collaborative robotics, multiple robots doing a task. How did I get to where I am right now? I'm at the AeroVironment, which is a small defense company in Simi Valley. We make UAVs. I am a controls engineer, even though I don't hold any degrees in controls. Controls engineering isn't really a degree that you can actually get usually. A typical day at my job is I work between my desk, writing and implementing software or control strategies. I work in the labs, so I could be actively building something in one of our labs. I could be actively programming / debugging something in one of our labs. I go on flight tests. We have a local flight test around our area, and we go out flight testing pretty often. I can go to customer demos at different locations, and then also just in general customer meetings. Kind of the skills that I think you would need to kind of hold the general, engineering and industry kind of positions. Technical skills. So you do need to know engineering. You do need to know whatever your particular engineering is: mechanical, electrical, software, etc. So you need to take that. You would have to take that very serious and actually have that foundation, so that when you go to at least your first job, you have some foundation. A second one, I think it's a pretty important one, is the ability to present technical data. It's essentially public speaking, but doing it for technical stuff. I mean, I see this all the time when I'm doing interviews with people that, they know a lot of stuff, but they can't present it to anyone else. And then you have other people that don't know as much, but they can present it very well. So that's another thing. As time goes on in the industry, you would probably start wanting to do more, having more management skills. So, leadership, being able to run a team and things like that. Special skills, abilities, education. Most engineering degrees are kind of a technical degree. You kind of learn what you're supposed to learn for that particular degree. Obviously, you can go into an engineering field that is adjacent to the one that you actually studied, and you would have to kind of learn on the fly, but you're kind of given a base, math, science, math, physics, what other topics that you might, chemistry or something like that. Salary ranges. That's a hard question. The ranges change with the type of degree that you have. So a petroleum engineer can make, as an entry, $100,000, with a bachelor's. Whereas a mechanical or electrical or something else could start at 50 to 60. Another thing that your salary range depends on is your education level. So kind of the typical structure of positions in engineering are kind of engineering 1, engineering 2, engineering 3, senior engineer 1, 2, 3, and principal engineer. And kind of the bachelor's would come in as an engineer 1, master's would come in as engineer 2, and a PhD or something would come in as engineer 3. And each one of those has a significant, kind of lift in your salary. So I would say entry level across all majors, something like 50 to 80. And if you had a master's, it could be 65, 70 to 85 or something. And then PhD could be 70 to 100, anywhere in those numbers. I will say that you can definitely have a bachelor's for engineering. I would say master's is kind of where you want to be at as far as the amount of education. PhD is, and a lot of times, unnecessary unless you want to do specifically more research-oriented stuff. What are the advantages and disadvantages of my job? it is a typical 9 to 5. So it kind of, you go to work, you come home, and you kind of shut off generally. Since we do work with the Defense Department and other defense departments around the world, there's a lot of money coming through. So projects are typically pretty expensive. So mistakes are expensive. So there's a little bit of stress on that, that you don't want to make mistakes. And I don't think I have any other things to say. That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Lindsay. Thank you. Let's give a round of applause virtually. That was very helpful to learn about the various different aspects of engineering and just a wealth of knowledge that you bring to your field and sharing with our students the relevant information. So thank you so much. Next, we have Tiggy. Let's welcome Tiggy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tiggy. Like Brianna, I'm currently a graduate student. I'm studying infectious disease, getting my PhD in infectious disease epidemiology at Harvard. So I guess I would say my undergraduate academic and research experiences in ecology, also like Brianna, really now. I took this one course in ecological modeling that just entirely exposed me to a field that I had never been aware of previously. And then I built on that with other modeling courses that were offered through the major. And so supplementing those courses with technical courses in math, like calculus, differential, various forms of quantitative skill sets, I think was really important to like merge with an ecological background that was like offered through my major. So I found that to be a useful experience. And then research opportunities outside of class through just like, for instance, I just cold emailed an author of this article I had read during a summer research opportunity at my school, and was able to go to his lab. He had a digital epidemiology lab in Switzerland, and pursue research there. So I think just spending a lot of time working through the literature, and then reaching out to people who were in the field, especially because the field I'm in is very insular. And so to echo what Brianna was saying about like a network, once you start to interact with some individuals in the network, it really opens you up to multiple really cool opportunities. So I think that was helpful. In terms of the skill sets that I think are really critical for my field, I would say it's kind of an amalgamation of multiple skills, because the field is very much an integrative perspective, in the sense that you have to have the technical like math skills, pure math skills I was addressing previously, statistical methods, so like ranging from spatial statistics to machine learning, and then just having subject matter knowledge on infectious diseases themselves to be able to contextualize all the math, the formulae that you learn, because this is a very applied field. So just to like describe it in detail, making projections, kind of the projections that you see a lot now with COVID, about infectious diseases in different contexts. So I think that having those diverse, kind of being exposed to those multiple different dimensions is really critical. And I would say coding is paramount. Exposure familiar to coding, R, any form, is really essential. And then, so that's the like my little synthesis of the field and my experiences so far. And I think I would say that diversity inclusion is something I've been really thinking about in terms of like how to approach these questions in the field itself, because as I mentioned previously, it's a very arcane, very insular community, and it's really just certain types of folks. You don't really see people like me in the field, and so they're kind of limited to single perspectives. And that has enormous implications in terms of what kinds of questions they're asking, what kinds of research they're conducting, what kinds of data they're collecting, who they're interacting with. All these are very paramount because it's not science in isolation, really. It's very much an applied science, epidemiology. So kind of interacting with individuals who have no exposure to these issues and trying to at least help open their eyes to them, I think has been something I've been trying to learn about and work through. And I would say, yeah, I think in terms of like moving forward and kind of getting familiar and with this field and joining in, it's very much an open opportunity, and especially now is really critical to get diverse voices, I think, to expand the conversation I was saying before and expand the research perspective. And so just reading up on the literature, there are multiple open data sources online that you can download and work through, or just data sources that you may be exposed to with your interactions with community-based organizations, and working through them and trying to formulate your own questions and approaching professors, because kind of like I was saying before, I literally told a professor all the way in Switzerland and was able to put his lab. So they're very, as long as you come in with a very informed understanding of the literature and their research, reaching out and pursuing that is, I like wholeheartedly encourage. Yeah, and so that's all I have.
Thank you, T. That was so amazing to learn about the field of epidemiology. Yes, let's go ahead and give her a virtual round of applause. That was very interesting, and all the resources you shared and valuable knowledge that you bring into the field and share with our students. So thank you so much. We have 3 more presenters, and next we have Dr. Erica.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to show you a brief PowerPoint. So my name is Erica Urquhart, and I'm an orthopedic surgeon. My practice in orthopedic surgery is a private practice. I'm not in academics anymore. And I'm in joint practice with my husband, Mark. So what do orthopedic surgeons do? Well, we treat patients who have functional limitations, which is actually of many of the specialties of medicine, one of the most rewarding, because we're able to perform either surgery or maybe do consultation and recommend non-operative treatment. And most of our patients get better, which is phenomenal as a medical specialty. Orthopedic surgery is not a small thing. I don't think anyone ends up with a medical degree by accident. It's actually quite a challenging course of study, in that you, in your undergraduate studies, at some point take an examination called the MCAT. And based on your performance on the MCAT and your performance in undergraduate, you could have any major, but most students do have majors that are in the sciences, then you're selected to attend medical school. And that is not necessarily an easy thing to do, to get into medical school. And once you're in medical school for 4 years usually, but some programs like Stanford and Harvard also, you could do an extra year or 2. I did actually 7 years because I chose to do both the MD and the PhD. So I have an MD and PhD degree. My graduate degree is in molecular and cellular neuroscience. But once you graduate from medical school, then you go on to orthopedic surgery residency, which is generally 5 years. And from there, you could additionally do a fellowship. Uh-oh. I don't know why I can't control the screen anymore. Sorry. Let's see. So one of the things that is amazing that I alluded to briefly about orthopedics is the fact that you could take someone who's an athlete who maybe has an injury or maybe just chronic wear, and perform an intervention that would allow them to have a regular lifestyle. And I'm sure you all are too young to know Mary Lou Retton, but she's a very famous gymnast. And at the age of 38, she required a hip replacement. And I thought it would be interesting for you just to see a little bit of what we actually look at in orthopedic surgery. Again, we're taking patients with functional limitations. So what parts of your body perform function? Well, that's your bones, your joints, everything that moves basically involves orthopedic surgery. So for a patient like Mary Lou Retton, we would potentially go in initially knowing the type of wear and tear that she exerted upon her body and look inside her hip joint. So these are just a couple of images that are showing an arthroscopic view of the hip joint. So you can see the ball or the femoral head and the socket or the acetabulum, the cartilage that's on the socket. And so this is something that I think is really appealing about orthopedic surgery, is that you can actually stick a camera inside a joint, shoulder, elbow, knee, hip, ankle, and visualize the anatomy. If a patient has deterioration or arthritis, like this is the hip, again, you can see the pelvis and the thigh bone or the femur. Here you see the knee joint with the distal or lower end of the knee and the proximal side of the tibia. And you can see the wear and tear or the loss of cartilage here. So we can address that with a joint replacement. And some of the things that we think about when we're looking at doing joint replacement in patients is their age, their activity level, if they have any other health problems, and how well they'll be able to rehabilitate. So we actually in orthopedic surgery deal with not only cameras, looking in joints and visualizing amazing anatomy, we also deal with materials like hammers, saws, we wear spacesuits, and we put implants in the joints. So this is just an image of some of the implants that we might choose to use in a patient. And this is the knee joint. So we saw an arthroscopic view of the hip before. This is the knee. It looks very similar, but you can see that the tibia bone is kind of flat. The cartilage, again, similar to the labrum called the meniscus here. And you can see the curve of the femur bone. And something that's really quite phenomenal is that we're applying some of the technologies like robotics to performing joint replacement and other open invasive surgeries. So we're using computers now to be able to do that, which is also quite innovative. So again, I just chose this little girl because she's very happy. Our postoperative patients, generally, if we do our job right, they're going to be very happy. They're going to have to work hard to do the rehabilitation, but at the end of the day, all of that hard work will be worth it. So like most medical fields, it's a calling. It's not just a job. You're compensated, but you're compensated after years of hard work and minimal compensation. So as residents, we're making almost minimum wage for the number of hours that we work. By the time we graduate with our student loan debt for having paid for medical school, paid for undergrad, and made very little money in residency, yes, we're compensated, but we're at the point where most people are like mid-career. We're just starting our careers, in our early to mid 30s. And so depending on the specialty of medicine that you choose, you could be making high 100s, mid to high 100s, to maybe for orthopedic surgery, at the minimum, you would be making high 100s if you were working for a hospital. And it could be into the millions, depending on the type of doctor you are and how much you operate. But I would say on average, it's probably more like 500,000, somewhere between high 100s to 500s, to be kind of crude about compensation. It's a tremendous opportunity though. When you talk about quality of life, orthopedic surgery is a very competitive residency program because it is 5 years. The patients do very well. It's really cool. So a lot of people want to do it. If you're fortunate enough to be able to train in orthopedic surgery, you will be working very hard, both in the operating room and in the office or clinic, taking care of patients. It's a 24/7 responsibility with calls in the middle of the night. If you're taking care of patients who you've done joint replacement surgery on and they live long enough, you might have to revise that implant. So, you know, it's really, it's a situation where you have a patient who has a need, and when you, as the doctor, take responsibility for doing a surgical intervention for that patient, you're responsible for that patient. And with that comes interruptions from life, unfortunately. But you are compensated pretty well, although the first few years of that compensation, if you're not fortunate enough to have full scholarships or parents who could have paid for your schooling, will go towards your student loans. So I encourage you to reach out if you have any further questions about the calling of medicine or orthopedic surgery. And hopefully I was able to give you at least a taste of what orthopedics is like. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Erica. That was amazing, you know, to give us a brief overview of orthopedic surgeon field, and our bodies are so fascinating. So, and yes, it does pay off, and it's so interesting to be able to see the dynamics of how the body works and how healing can happen. So thank you so much for that valuable information. Let's give a virtual round of applause to Dr. Erica. And then we have with us Joy White, and then afterwards we have Kevin, and then we'll have a brief 10 minutes for Q&A. So if you still have questions, please make sure you're addressing it to Deanna, and we'll cover your questions at the end. And Joy, you're on.
Okay, awesome. You guys let me know if you can see my screen so I will know that you're okay. I saw the thumbs up. So fantastic. First of all, I just want to thank all of the organizers of this event. I think this is so valuable on so many levels, and I actually wish that I had something like this when I was in school. So let me know if you can see. I'm moving on to the next slide. I don't have it set up so that I can see what you're seeing. I can see everybody. So I'm Joy White. If you're interested in my bio, more than happy to share that with you. I'm a business executive. I'm also a nurse practitioner or an advanced practice nurse by trade. I have a small nonprofit that is a minority female-owned business, actually two of them, one called the Women's Wellness Garden, and the other one's called the Black Girls Plan. So I'm kind of a geek when it comes to planning. I love football. My nephew is number 26 for the Clemson Tigers, and I'm the mom of 3 adult kids. Yes, believe it or not, 3 adult kids. My son turned 27 yesterday. So my oldest turned 27 and my youngest is 21. She'll be 22 next week. So I say all that to say, in the midst of having just an amazing career, just know that you can do it all. You can have a family, you can have kids, you can go to football games, you can do all the things you want to do. And I think Ernest said something that was so important, and that is it's really about balance in your life. And so I share that to say I'm not all about work. I work hard, but I play just as hard. So I just wanted to share a little bit about me. All right, the typical day for a nurse practitioner, I think I'll start. Dr. Erica hit it spot on. I think it's like, what is a nurse practitioner? A lot of people think about a registered nurse. They think about maybe a licensed practical nurse, but what is a nurse practitioner? So a nurse practitioner is an advanced practice nurse. So he or she has a bit more training than a registered nurse. In most states, a nurse practitioner can practice independently. So I can have my own panel of patients, I can prescribe medications, and all those things, much like a physician. However, there are certain medications that I cannot prescribe, and there are certain procedures that I cannot perform. So that's the difference between a registered nurse who works under a physician versus an advanced practice nurse who can practice independently. So just want to share that. So a typical day, it all looks very, very different. And I think that's what I love about nursing. It's so different depending on what you want to do. You can be an orthopedic nurse, you can be a pediatric nurse. I'm actually a women's health nurse practitioner. So I specialize in women's health, and I'm a current doctoral student because I'm also, I'm very, very interested in mental health. And so I'm looking to become a mental health practitioner as well. So in one of the pictures you'll see I'm speaking on a panel, and another picture I'm at my home church and we're doing blood pressure checks. And another picture, I had the opportunity to go to Mexico as part of the healthcare ministry because we're building a home for a family in Mexico. And so that's why I say every day is so different, and it just depends on what it is you want to do. But the field is wide open. You can teach, you can research, you can provide bedside care, you can be in leadership and management. I actually went my undergraduate, community college. I started in community college, and then I transferred to a four-year university where I got my bachelor's of science in nursing from Virginia Commonwealth University. Then I went on to Duke University where I became an advanced practice nurse practitioner in women's health. So it all started for me in community college. I was adjunct faculty before I moved to California at community college, and the community college that I actually went to. So I'm huge, like community college rocks. So what does it take to become an advanced practice nurse or a nurse practitioner? You will need to it does require a bachelor's degree in nursing. And then a master's degree in nursing. I will say that the profession is pushing to make the doctoral degree the gold standard to become a nurse practitioner. So gold standard would be that doctorate in nursing practice. As it stands today, you can become an advanced practice nurse, a nurse practitioner with a master's degree. So hint, hint, get in now before they add that layer. That's more student loans, that's more schooling. But right now, the not terminal degree, but the degree required to become an advanced practice nurse or nurse practitioner is a master's in nursing. But the doctor of nursing will become the terminal degree. Anybody recognize anything in this picture? Can you spot me in the picture? Just curious if you can spot me in the picture. Show of hands, virtual hands. So I say diversity matters, representation matters. I went to school, was the only Black person in my class. I became class president. I'm still very much in touch with many of my nursing friends. But diversity and representation matters. I'm so excited again about doing this presentation. Santa Monica, love the diversity on your campus, love what you're doing for students, and really representation matters, guys. So undergraduate degree in nursing and master's degree in nursing as it stands today. So soft skills. So we're talking about soft skills. I didn't want to assume that you knew what soft skills were. So hard skills are technical, the degree, the certificate, machine operation, computer programming, those are all the technical skills. The soft skills are the things that don't require a degree for. Effective communication, we've heard that, essential for this job. You're part of a team. You're part of a healthcare team where lives are on the end of it. So if you're not communicating well about what's happening, particularly in a crisis situation, it can be a really bad outcome. So teamwork, we talked about dependability. People are counting on you, not just to be there, but to know your stuff. We're talking about people's lives. And so it's really important for you to be competent, be dependable. You've got to be adaptable. It is an ever-changing environment. Patients conditions change really fast. Hospital policies change really fast. Conditions, funding, things change so quickly. You've got to be adaptable. The one thing that is certain, and that is healthcare will change. So you got to be real comfortable with change. Conflict resolution, flexibility. I've heard leadership already from our speakers. Problem solving is huge. Your patient's conditions are changing. You need to be able to know very quickly what you need to do about it. I need to be able to assess what's happening with the vital signs, what's happening even if the vital signs are stable. My patient doesn't look good and says they don't feel good. 1 minute. Oh my Lord. So, okay, soft skills. You guys get the picture, and we'll share this with you. Profession, the average nurse practitioner salary in California is $123,000 as of September 25th of this year. But the range, California is on the high end for nurse practitioner salaries, the high end, but the average salary range from $114 to $133, and that can go up or down depending on your field of study. Advantages or disadvantages? I think the sky is the limit for wherever you want to go in this profession, whether it's clinical, whether it's administrative, whether it's education, whether it's research. To me, you can do anything in nursing. It's one of those degrees. It doesn't matter where you are on the planet, you will have a job. So talk about job security. It is here in nursing, and particularly with the advanced practice nurse, because physicians, Dr. Erica, nobody can do what you do. I can't have a nurse do orthopedic surgery, but I will tell you there's some areas in some hospital systems where they say, hey, it's much less expensive to hire an advanced practice nurse to do that than a physician. We could never become a surgeon. So Dr. Erica has that on lock, guys. It's a lucrative profession. It is ever changing. That's an advantage and a disadvantage, that it's ever changing. Lack of diversity is something that I love what Santa Monica's doing, changing the paradigm. We want to see representation. It matters. It means that research now happens. So I'll share this quick story. I know Deanna's going to turn my mic off in a second. I'll share this quick story. I'm going through Duke and I'm looking through textbooks and they're telling me all these conditions and what these conditions look like on skin that doesn't look like mine. I don't turn red. If you guys haven't seen, I'm pretty brown. So when my skin's irritated, it typically doesn't turn red. So I need to see from a research perspective, what does that condition look like on a Black or brown person? And so diversity matters, and funding, which Ernest said. In terms of internships, it's built in. You can't get your degree without doing clinical hours. So it's already built in. So I'll pause there, honor the time, look forward to any questions that you have. And if you can't tell, I'm a bit excited about being on the panel. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much. That was lovely. We appreciate your enthusiasm and so much great knowledge and experiences that you've shared, bringing in the diversity, bringing in your passion. Thank you so much, Joy. That was amazing. So let's give Joy a virtual round of applause. And we have, last but not least, Kevin is here with us, and he has the floor to present. And after the presentation, we have quite a few questions. Deanna told me that we'll look forward to address it to our speakers. So Kevin, you're on.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kevin Chen. And first of all, I'd like to thank the fantastic Career Services Center for coordinating this fantastic panel, as well as the other distinguished panelists. I feel very honored to speak with other folks who are so passionate about their jobs, careers, and lives. So about me, I'm a corporate attorney. I've been practicing for about 15 years. In private practice, first at 2 different law firms, and then more recently at Yahoo, and then currently at Lyft, the rideshare company. So overall, I work with entrepreneurs to build and scale tech companies. So it's anything from 2 engineers and a dog in a garage, although I know people aren't in garages anymore, and everyone's working virtually, but really small startups, seed stage companies to big kind of multi-billion-dollar public companies. So overall, in terms of how I chose the career path, I think I'm probably the outlier in the group in that I don't have a technical degree, but I grew up in Tennessee. I have a twin brother, and we both went to college at I was in the West Coast, he was on the East Coast. He decided to be an orthopedic surgeon, and I just wanted to do something different. So I actually started out in pre-med freshman, sophomore year, and then decided, hey, I'm going to pivot because we're identical and I don't want our career paths to continue being identical. So I ended up majoring in public policy and worked for a few years at a boutique law firm in the Silicon Valley, and excuse me, then went to law school here in LA and UCLA. So in terms of a typical work day, a lot of it is in meetings, on calls with our management team, my clients internally, finance, investor relations, marketing, communications, policy, working with outside counsel to negotiate deals, reviewing public disclosures that Lyft may make, everything from our regulatory filings with the Securities and Exchange Commission to, yesterday we had a win for Prop 22, the ballot initiative in terms of the employee classification for drivers. So it's really exciting, really fast paced, really enjoy the work I'm doing, particularly with deals. Those are super fast paced and enjoy that. In terms of necessary steps to become a corporate attorney, I think at the end of the day, I view that corporate attorneys are specialists. you don't need a technical degree, right, in biochemistry or engineering or anything like that. I think we're industry agnostic, essentially. But I think a lot of the emphasis is on really, how do you help in a practical way entrepreneurs, executives, investors to achieve their business goals. So I think in terms of necessary steps, I think first and foremost, find a mentor or several mentors who really can advocate for you, who've kind of been there, can really help you with pitfalls and potential hiccups that you may experience in your academic studies or in your career, and who can really just be a sounding board for you. I think an extension of that is, in addition to mentors, find a network, right? Folks who have similar beliefs, but also folks who disagree with you, right? So you can get different perspectives, there's so many different ways to solve issues and problems that I think having a broad network of, a diverse level of, thoughts, career paths, experiences is incredibly important. So in terms of just the basics, being a lawyer requires going to law school, applying is 3 years, and then you got to do pass the state bar exam. So in terms of kind of special knowledge, skills, abilities, again, unless you're going into intellectual property law, there's no real technical skills that are required. But as Joy mentioned, a lot of the soft skills, public speaking, negotiation, having flexibility, being able to deal with people, manage teams, right? Really mentoring folks on your team, mentoring folks in your company. Those are things that I think on a day-to-day basis are, I think, the most critical skills. For salary ranges, it really depends. I think for a corporate attorney, you're typically in private practice. So you're usually starting out either at a law firm or in what they call in-house, which is a company, either startup or a big established company. I think I started on private practice in a law firm, and I think the current going rate for first-year associates is about 190K plus bonus to start out around 200K. I think if you're going into government or nonprofit, it's probably closer to 100,000. And then through your career, I think the compensation really depends on, if you're going into management, if you're at a startup, if you're at a big company, if there's equity involved. So it's really all over the map there. Disadvantages and advantages. I'll start with the advantages. I think I feel blessed that I have had a career where I've worked with incredibly smart, motivated, innovative individuals who've started kind of companies that have changed the world, right? I worked in the law firm representing primarily biotech and medical device companies. And I think a lot of the work they've done to really get through kind of the regulatory landscape, from a very basically, two people, right, starting a company with an idea to doing collaborations with big pharma or selling to companies or going public, I think is really exciting. I think disadvantages, I think like with everyone, right, if you're really passionate about something, then you really throw yourself into it, and it can be not a 24/7 job, but I think it's not a 9-to-5 job, and that's just, I think, what folks have to realize, that you need to enforce your own boundaries to protect your family, protect your personal time. But if you get an email or a text from a senior executive, you can't, and it's Friday night, you probably can't wait until Monday morning to respond to it. So in terms of internships, I think, practical experiences, you can't replace that. So whether it's in college, grad school, finding something that is in your area that you're passionate about, I think can not only build your resume, but really help you build those connections and mentors and advocates to help you throughout your career. So I think that's about it.
Thank you, Kevin. That was amazing to share your experiences and encourage our students. Let's give Kevin a virtual round of applause for sharing that valuable information. And again, thank you so much. It has been such an amazing time, and I know that all of the students find it valuable as well to hear from your backgrounds, the passion you bring to the industry, and all of the advice that you've given them, and be able to be exposed to various different career backgrounds. So This is quite fantastic. And now we have quite a few questions, and I'll have Deanna to start asking the questions.
All right. Before I start asking the questions, I've had a few students ask about contacting the panelists. I know we had kind of an issue of posting the bios. If you prefer to be contacted by a student, if you don't, that's okay. But if students want to ask more questions, I realize we don't have too much time for us to get to maybe all the questions we have. Can you please post in the chat how you would like to be contacted? That could be email, that could be social media, however you wish to be contacted. If you don't wish to be contacted, just don't put anything in the chat. That would be great. Thank you so much. Okay, so first question I have directed at Dr. Joy. What has inspired and led you through hard times through your education path? Any advice?
Great question. I think the inspiration came from, and I don't know who said it, I know my purpose. And so one of the things, if I could tell my younger self, was what is it that you absolutely love to do? Don't look for a profession. Don't say, oh, I'm going to be a lawyer. If you enjoy advocating, then look at professions that allow you to advocate. So I think the motivation to keep going is really because I'm just passionate about what I do. And if somebody said, hey, we're not going to pay you anymore, this is still something I would do. And so I think knowing and finding your passion is just really number one. So even on rough days when, maybe I wasn't feeling it, or things were crazy around me, I really fell back on what I was passionate about. And this is it. I enjoy helping people. I enjoy educating. I enjoy teaching. I enjoy leading. I enjoy encouraging. I enjoy inspiring. And all of that culminated with nursing. So I think find your passion, because no matter what the rough days look like, it's your passion that keeps you going. Hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you. Great answer. Thank you so much. The next question is directed to Dr. Erica. Has there ever been a time where you question whether you're in the right field or career? If yes, how did you overcome this, and what made you choose this specialty?
Great question. I'll start with the second part of the question. I chose orthopedic surgery because it's just really cool. I started medical school thinking that I wanted to do neurosurgery, and I did enjoy neurosurgery very much. But there's just something about the varied anatomy of orthopedics and the variety of instrumentation. I think I also was piqued by the challenge because orthopedic surgery is still predominantly male, and when I trained, it was more so. And the idea that as a woman who's like not really big, some women are really tall and very athletic, but I'm not that. And as someone with my body habitus, the challenge of being able to do those types of cases and really get physical in a controlled sort of way in the operating room was something I think that also drew me. I've never been one to walk away from a challenge. So understanding that, certainly there were times where, for many reasons that were brought up on the panel, could be diversity inclusion issues. It could be, more than race. I think in orthopedics, my sex has probably been the biggest impediment or challenge. And so there are certainly times where I was frustrated. I don't think I ever regretted my decision, but certainly there were levels of frustration that I just felt that I didn't necessarily need or have to deal with in order to do well in my chosen profession. But I think even, having gotten to your level of education, I'm sure there have been times before you got to Santa Monica College where each one of you has probably had an experience that made you think, well, maybe I should just quit here. But for most of us, that lasts for about 30 seconds or a minute. And then you sort of kick yourself in the pants and say, I'm bigger than this. I'm stronger than this. I'm certainly up to the challenge. I can do this. And, so that's really what has gotten me through every situation or circumstance where maybe I felt that I wasn't being treated fairly. and maybe I wanted to play the role of the victim, I had to sort of talk to myself and think back on all of the experiences that got me to the point of being in orthopedics. My undergraduate's from Harvard. I did the MD PhD at Johns Hopkins. And then getting to orthopedics and saying I'm going to quit here, that wasn't in the paradigm. That's not me. So I think it's really a situation where whatever you choose to do, life is about knowing yourself and having the ability to bring yourself through the vicissitudes of life, meaning there will be high points and there will be low points. There will be points where you're all alone. There will be points when everyone is with you. And you have to be able to like and love yourself at every one of those points. And if you're able to do that, then you can overcome any adversity in any circumstance. So long answer to a short question. Hopefully that was helpful.
Thank you. Very inspiring. I appreciate that. I'm sure we all appreciate it. Your words are like a hug. So next question is for Brianna. The student said she really loves learning about ecology. What kind of organizations did you volunteer in?
Okay, so that's a really good question. I think with my experience in just ecology is that we're always looking for help in the field, especially for people who are super passionate about it. One of the organizations that I volunteered for is the Buena Vista Audubon Society, and they focus on conservation of birds. So even if you're not particularly maybe interested in that type of a species or genre, you can still, they care about like conserving it. So they also care about their environment around it. And a lot of that is dealing with also on a managerial level and talking to like people interested in land owners who might be impacting this particular animal's environment. And so it's not just maybe focused on birds in general, but just like on the total ecosystem. I've also volunteered, like you saw in the presentation, for NOAA. That has a lot of opportunities if you're maybe not interested in the organismal biology aspect, but if you're more interested in the exchanges and fluxes of different types of gases. So there's a lot of opportunities. I would just probably reach out to a particular organization in your community and just say, hey, I'm a volunteer. I'm really passionate about what you guys are doing, and I just want to be able to help out. So always reaching out. And for the most part, like 97% of the time, I'll usually have people come back and say, oh, okay, glad to hear that. Here are some opportunities for you to be able to participate in. So just look on the website, and I'm sure you'll find other opportunities.
Thank you so much, Brianna. I think that's all we have, the time we have for questions, but we did have the panel put their contact information in the chat. There were a ton of other great questions, so sorry we couldn't get to all of them. And I think Gohar is going to wrap us up.
And yeah, I wanted to say thank you everybody for coming today again, for everybody who attended. We hope that you found this valuable information about your careers, and you can see that every one of the panelists is inspiring and encouraging you to pursue your career dreams. It is possible through rough and tumble, and you're able to achieve your goals. And we're here to support you in the process. And we want you to be successful and be on the panel one day with us. So I would like to thank again all of the panelists for taking time out of their busy day to be here to inspire and encourage all of us and all of the students. I would like to also thank Professor Denman. Thank you so much for bringing all of the panelists together and hosting us. Let's give Professor Denman a round of applause, and everybody who attended. So you were able to make this possible for us today. And this concludes the end of the presentation. If you have more questions, don't forget to fill out the form that I posted in the chat box for the verification of the attendance form. And if you would like to receive the biographies, there is a place in the notes you can let us know, and we'll forward you the biographies. And that concludes our presentation today. Thank you, everybody.